Welcome to another episode of Progress, Potential, and Possibilities, discussions with fascinating people designing a better tomorrow for all of us. I'm your host, Ira Pastor.
Welcome everybody again to another episode of our show, bringing you another really fascinating guest working in the innovation domain, helping to create a better tomorrow. As viewers and listeners of the show know, we've been spending a lot of time at various innovation centers of the United States government and Defense Department. On today's show, we are going to be headed north of our border to our friends in Canada, and we are going to be joined, I have the honor of being joined by Eric Fournier, who is Director General for Innovation of the Innovation for Defense Excellence and Securities Program, or IDEAS program. It's a fascinating program. Over the past year alone, they've invested around $100 million in various organizations across Canada, somewhere around 270 to date, that are using innovation thinking and solutions ultimately to support the women and men of Canada's Department of National Defense and Canadian Armed Forces. And ultimately, the organization aims to be Canada's science, technology, and innovation leader, the advisor, the collaborative partner, and knowledge integrator, ultimately, for the defense and security of the country. Eric began his career with Defense Research and Development Canada as a defense scientist in their flight mechanics group precision weapons section. He spent most of his scientific career in that establishment, where he held a number of positions in the weapons field of study. He also spent time at the United Kingdom's DERA Fort Halstead laboratory as an exchange scientist. In 2006, Eric was appointed Director of Science and Technology Air in Ottawa, where he managed the Air Force Science and Technology Portfolio Program. And then he returned to Ottawa after a time in serving as the National Representative of Aerospace Systems Group in the Technical Cooperation Group and spending some time in Toronto. Came back to Ottawa. He was appointed Director of Defense Research and Development at Canada's Centre for Operational Research and Analysis. Later on, took the position of Defense R&D Counselor in London, where he was responsible as a liaison for defense science and technology between Canada and various other countries, including the UK, Germany, Netherlands, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. And then ultimately, in 2017, he was appointed Director General for Strategic Decision Support and ultimately assumed his position as Innovation Director for the IDEAS Initiative. It's a very exciting program, a lot to talk about, and we're honored to have him with us. Eric Fournier, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule today.
Really appreciate to be here today. Thank you for the invitation, Ira.
Yeah, no, this is a very exciting program. And, you know, there's a lot of things we're going to be getting into. I would love to just start off as we typically do for a couple of minutes, just to learn a little bit more about Eric Fournier. Obviously, I read through your bio there and what you've been up to the last couple of decades, but talk a little bit about the early days, if you would. Where did you grow up? When did you first get interested in STEM and science and technology, and what got you interested in national service originally? If you could take us into that early story.
Yeah, so I'm from Canada, obviously, a small town on the eastern part of the country called Rimouski, and always did my schooling there until I was 18 years old, all in French, by the way, because Canada's got two languages, so learned English in that part of that life. So towards 18, 19, 20. Sciences has always been there. My older brother is an engineer. My sister is an optometrist. So it's always been part of what I wanted to do. And it was decide what, in the health or in engineering. And in the end, engineering won. And I ended up becoming an engineer. So I've been an engineer by trade. I'm an aerospace engineer, aerodynamics, high-speed aerodynamics. studied in Canada and then in the US, spent several years in Texas, University of Texas at Austin. And then moved back to Canada to do my work. And I was interested by national defense to support my country, and ended up doing my whole career as part of national defense. So as you mentioned, beginning doing the scientific work, directly my hands in and doing weapons research, high precision weapons and guidance and things like this. And towards the 2006, moving to the dark side of management. And I slowly step away from doing the science myself to managing the science, to liaise with other people doing the science for my role in the UK, for example, and now to working with other organizations doing science with us, all of those innovators out there that we are working with, and that the IDEAS program bring to work with national defense in Canada. So we have to remember as well that IDEAS is one piece of that research and development. There's Defense Research and Development Canada. So National Defense in Canada as an organization to do science technology for defense already. So it exists. It's an active organization, about 1,400 employees, $350 million per year. And IDEAS is a complement to that, to go out to get solutions with our innovators, partners, to bring more to national defense than just the work being done internally.
And we've talked, as I mentioned, we've been spending time with a lot of the different innovation groups down here in the U.S. that also work in defense innovation, and then sort of what we'll call dual use opportunities that spin off of that. And there's sort of a range of sort of short and long-term innovation centers here. We've talked about areas like the DARPA organization, which much more sort of moonshot long-term stuff. I joke, if you want to turn an aircraft carrier invisible or something kind of wild, they're the ones you go to. We have some other organizations like the National Security Innovation Network, short-term stuff, how to enhance sort of the healthcare information systems on an Air Force base or what have you. Where does IDEAS sort of fit in that spectrum? Talk a little bit about sort of the scope of the type of innovation initiatives that you look at, whether you're looking at moonshots or the really short-term stuff or somewhere in between, and a little bit about, in your role as Director General, where do your directives come from? Who calls you up and says, Eric, we got this problem, we got 18 months, fix this, develop this. Talk a little bit about that, if you would, as well.
So first, what are we at? I mean, what is IDEAS? In a way, IDEAS is a bit more like your Air Force works. Not too long ago, you had one of my colleagues, Colonel Nathan Dillon, on the podcast. Well, in March, we held a workshop of various international organizations about like IDEAS. So we had a representative from Air Force Works. We had a representative from the Defense Innovation Unit in the US as well, Naval X, other countries, DASA in the UK. And so we're about that size. We're not the DARPA, but we're access to innovation to resolve questions that come to us, not in the 20-year range, more in the 0 to 5-year range type things.
Okay.
So really, IDEAS was developed as part of the 2017 defense policy in Canada called Strong, Secure, and Engage. It appeared there as a new program connected with Defense Research and Development Canada. So brand new, $1.6 billion over 20 years, so about $80 million per year. And it was a blank set of paper. It was here's the money. Here, what you should be doing is connecting with innovators and go ahead and build something. So we brought a group of people. Then we decided to say, okay, so what do we need to do with innovators? What are we looking for as solutions? What do we need? And we slowly developed the program as it exists today. So first with one tool. Now we have 5 tools we're using, and we'll get into that a bit later. But we're using 5 tools to connect with innovators. But so first it was one, and then learned from it and kept saying, okay, no, we need a bit more, and we need a bit more, and we need a bit more. But we're there today, I think. Now, our challenges, where do they come from? IDEAS does not generate those requests. We work closely with our national defense. So we work with all the entities that make up national defense in Canada. So I'm talking about the services, so the Air Force, the Navy, Special Forces, Army, and others that are there as well. So the space, cyber, material that procure everything, and all of those entities. So altogether, between 15 and 17 entities that come to us with their challenges, their problems, their issues, saying, hey, here's something we could ask Canadian innovators to help us solve. I have an example that to bring it to people a little bit. If the Army requires 60,000 pairs of boots, I will be telling the Army, go buy boots. I mean, there's nothing I can do for you. Now, if the Army, while they're buying those 60,000 pair of boots, are requiring a specific sole for a specific type of rocks or something that does not exist, that is something we can pull out, give to Canadian innovators and say, hey, here's a challenge, come out and solve that for us. So that's the type of thing. So we're talking about sensors, we're talking about communication system, we're talking about the things that make, again, so if we want to buy ships, Ideas was not going to buy ships.
Sure.
Sensors go on ships, communication system to go on ships. Those technologies that have a shelf life, after a few years, you go to the next step, you go to the next one because technology is advanced. So that's what the type of solutions we're looking for.
Excellent. And as you just mentioned, you have created a suite of funding mechanisms, 5 different silos, competitive projects, innovation networks, contests, sandboxes, and test drives, all sort of a slightly different level of funding. The competitive projects and the innovation networks, somewhere between 1.2 and 1.5 million dollars of grants that can go into those. I believe the others a little less, but so here I am. Say I'm here in the U.S., but if I'm a Canadian entrepreneur or I'm in an academic lab and I have a great idea, the IRA passed their idea for boot sensors to deal with some, radioactive rock. Oh, that's just making things up, but it sounds cool. How do I get involved? What's the process? What is the review process behind my proposal for getting involved? Talk a little bit about how some of these different funding mechanisms work, if you would.
Now, one thing about ideas is that we work with challengers. So we are the one proposing questions to people. I do agree that it does limit something. If somebody's got a great idea out there that does not fit in one of our challenge, well, they're kind of waiting for us to come up with the challenge that they could propose their solution. We're expanding slowly to go there, to work with that unknown, like the solutions that we don't know would help us, but we're not quite there. In a way to control our environment, we're taking challenges. So the Air Force is giving us a challenge. We'll post it and ask innovators to submit their solutions to this. So that's the type of environment we work with. So as you mentioned, and you've done your homework, you know the name of the 5 elements of the program. I can go a little bit in some of how they work, for example.
Please.
You mentioned competitive projects. So competitive project is the tool that we use the most often. It's the simplest one. It's a contracting tool. The Defense Innovation Unit in the US, DASA in the UK are using some type of tool like this where you start with a challenge. We ask people to come and make proposals to us. And from there, you use the funnel of innovation. So you start with many proposals come in. Every time we launch a challenge, we get between 30, 40, in one case, we got 150 proposals. That's a bit too many, by the way, because you need to manage them. But 40, 50, you get a good number of proposals come in. At that point, you evaluate those proposals. And most of the time, our reevaluation process is fairly simple. We use one of our scientists, the DRDC, so that organization. And from our stakeholders, we go and if they gave us a challenge, we'll bring some of their staff to say, look at those solutions. What do you think about that? We select a bunch, because at the end, we will start funding more than one. So from the 50, 60 that we receive, we'll fund 5, 10, 15 to start as a first phase. Competitive projects got 2 phases. The first phase, that's about 6 months, up to about $200,000. It's a development phase. So they brought us their great idea, and we want them to expand on that great idea. So for us to understand it better. So they do that work. After the 6 or 7 months that requires them to finish, then we stop and we look at what we have in front of us. And we'll use that funnel of innovation again. So we had 5, 10, 15. We'll reduce the number of solutions that are in front of us and increase the funding. So that second phase is up to $1 million, up to a year of work. But we'll go from 10, 15 to 2, 3, 4. And those have to be game changers. Our stakeholders that come to the table to make those decisions, because when I said at the beginning, ideas don't make decisions. It's that our stakeholders who come to the table and make those decisions. So they look at what's in front of them and say, wait a minute, this is amazing. I mean, this could solve our problem. All right. They're looking at some of the others. So we'll pick the one that could be game changers. And then we keep pushing them and funding them. And you keep doing that funnel. So you started with many proposals, smaller number at smaller amount of finances, increase the amount of finance to keep going down, and eventually we end up with 1 or 2 fairly advanced and appropriate solutions. So that's competitive project for you. So a contracting tool, we try to keep the contracting fairly quick, number of weeks, sometimes months, not years. So we move fast because innovation moves fast. That's one tool. A second tool that we use in a different way is a contest. In a way, it's a competition. Again, we start with a challenge and we say, if you can do this, why don't you come and compete against other innovators so we can identify the best solution, and the winner gets a prize, because we have the financial tool to be able to award a prize to someone. So we've done one in the past. We're doing one right now on robotics and AI, and we're asking innovators to bring in their robots or automated vehicle to do a specific number of missions or tasks, and we'll push them to deliver more and more and more and more complex tasks until in the end there's one left, and that will be the winner, but we'll have learned a lot through this process. So that's contest for you. It's a competition between innovators. The third tool that we use is innovation networks. In that specific case, the challenge is a bit different. So again, we're starting with a challenge, but those are challenges that require work over many years. We have 3 of them right now working. Advanced material. There's always going to be work in material. The interface human machine, so for drones connectivity, for example. So that again is the domain of work that requires work for many years. And we've just started one on 5G technologies. And 5G technologies will require, again, work for many years. So what we do for Innovation Network is, again, we pose a challenge. We say, if you want to participate into this type of work, submit a proposal. But bring your friends to submit a proposal. We're building networks. So if you submit a proposal on your own, you'll be eliminated. Now, we need universities. We need academia. We need industry, a whole bunch of people working together, making a team and submitting a proposal. And they get funded to do work for 3 years to advance the science in that domain. So for example, before we started this discussion, you mentioned some work on very advanced type of materials, camouflage material and all. Well, one of our network is working on that type of material now as they're moving forward. So looking at ballistic protection and camouflage and going into we're talking about low TRL research, TRL 2-3. So that requires time to get to a solution. But eventually, some of those solutions could be amazing because they're out of this world. So we're really pushing research to happen for those tools. The last 2, we're changing ball game altogether for the last 2 tools. They're more experimental tools. First one is called Sandbox, and that's what it is. There's a sandbox. We build the sandbox, and we ask innovators on a challenge to come and demonstrate their solution to us. So we build everything. There is no contract between us and them. We build everything for them to come and demonstrate. But when they come to demonstrate, everything is there with our specialists from National Defense, from our science, from all of our units, so that they can get feedback. So and that feedback for them is invaluable. That's why they come and participate to those events. So in 2019, we did one on counter-drone technology. And the challenge was to detect and defeat drones of class 1 and 2, so maximum about 2 meters size. we invited innovators to come and demonstrate their technology, and we built everything. So a large area in the Canadian plains, so lots of space, tens of kilometers with radar, with cameras, with had a fleet of drone because we were flying drones. So those people showed up with their technologies to detect and defeat drone, got organized and said, okay, you're there, you're ready, and we're going to start flying mission on them. One mission with one drone, two drones coming from different altitude, different speed, different areas, and all kinds of things that to push the technology to its limit. And we learned a lot about what those systems could do. And they learned a lot about what we were looking for. So we're both learning here. Now, that was so successful in 2019 that we're doing it again this fall. So in 2022, we've just selected 14 companies from around the world. We're going to be in display, trying to demonstrate their technologies to us. So it's a demonstration in this case. In a specific case, the demo is being done by the innovator themselves. Mm-hmm. Big difference from our last tool called Test Drive, where we acquire the solution or a license to the solution or release it. So we have access to the solution, and we turn to our colleagues from National Defense and we say, go and test it. So it's not the innovator that tests it. It's really our colleagues from Canadian Armed Forces that take it in the field and work with it, play with it, test it, employ it to see what it can do for them. And then they provide feedback to the innovator saying, like a report, yeah, this worked well, this did not work well, why, and things like this. So you have the range of tools that we have, from very low TRL for innovation network to high TRL for test drive, where we really need something, almost a final product when you think about it, because someone's going to go out in the field and play with it. So you really need something that's tangible, that's solid, that exists. That's the range of things we're doing.
No, that's why it's wonderful, and I appreciate you walking us through all that. I'll mention to the audience that the annual reports for the Ideas program can be found on the website. We'll link to that, and people that want to read through some of these different programs and see the open proposals and those that have closed and go into all details. It's really a fascinating suite that you've laid out. And you mentioned you have a very broad purview. You mentioned robotics, cyber, advanced materials of different types. One of the things, I was wondering, because I know it's sort of front and center to some of what you're doing now, the innovation network that is outlined per the autonomous systems. And once again, I want to sort of put this in perspective. You were saying, okay, so this is not a case of, hey, we need these robots here. That's not what you do. But in the innovation network, in the report, it's all about trust. It's all about, how you increase trust and reduce the barriers to soldiers adopting these technologies. And it's very interesting because we've heard about this theme of trust with autonomy in other domains beyond the military. You've heard about it in healthcare and so forth. And one of the things that you outline in the report is that, hey, these same philosophies and what you learn could be applicable to self-driving cars, Amazon delivering things via drone, healthcare. Talk a little bit about, once again, if I'm here, I'm helping you out, I'm the company, I'm working with you in the innovation network. How does that then work in terms of me utilizing these learnings for the non-military aspects of what's going on again?
All of the things that we do under Ideas is unclassified. Okay, it's a basic a requirement from the program, because we want our innovators to be able to develop products that we will buy. So the National Defense in Canada, we don't make things. We will go and buy things if they exist. Yep. So we're working with those innovators to develop those solutions so that eventually they have a product. Eventually they have something on the shelf somewhere that is what we need, because we help them develop it. So that we know that if we go buy that thing, it's what we need. I mean, we're part of the development cycles of it. And that dual use wording that many people are talking about today, yep, it's what we're looking for. Because in a way, if a small company specializes for national defense needs, their future is not there. I mean, we'll buy a small number of things. We'll come back and buy things every 5 years, but they will need to survive in between those 5 years. So they better have, they use that expertise to develop a dual use of that military technology for civilian use as well. Now, they could sell 2 million of units in the civilian market, and we'll buy 100,000 on the military market. We'll be happy with what we have, and they'll be happy because they have a dual use system that they can keep profiting from using a civilian market. So we're always working with our innovators to say, when you're developing something for us, please keep in mind that dual use, the fact that there is a civilian market out there. A lot of those technologies have value for the civilian market as well. So think about that. And we always work with them that way. Now, one thing you mentioned earlier, and I want to go there, you mentioned our webpage. Mm-hmm. Ideas is very transparent. And our webpage, you see that. So since we've launched the program, we've launched 70 challenges. The last one 2 weeks ago was the robotics one. And it covers all kinds of things, from recruitment to robotics to cyberspace, material. I mean, it covers a wide range of domains. Now, if you go on our webpage, you'll see all of those challenges there. You'll also see that the tools I was talking about earlier. You'll see how they work and a better description than what I said earlier about describing them. You also see everybody that we sign a contract with. So we're very transparent. We're putting everybody working with us so that they can see and potentially collaborate with each other.
Yep.
So it's all there now, and that's my advertisement for the day. There's also a place on the webpage where people can sign up. Just put your internet address. That way you'll stay connected with us. And when we launch challenges, you'll get a quick email saying, hey, by the way, Ideas has launched a new challenge. Because Ideas launches challenges without any warning. And we're not the January 1st, there's a bunch of challenges coming out, and then that's it till September. When we're ready and we have a tool ready, and we'll launch one and we keep going. So you could miss them because they don't stay open very long. So that was my advertisement for the day.
No, that's a great advertisement. And I said we will link to all those materials. Eric, one of the just because it was in the news a couple weeks ago, and I just wanted to bring it up because strangely enough, oh my God, this had to be about 15 years ago. I had to do a report. This was in a role I was in a couple careers ago on corrosion, and I never realized how big a business rust removal was. It's in the trillions, and there's no solutions for it. A couple of weeks ago, you announced one of the innovation initiatives that had to do with rust removal or corrosion removal on naval ships. But this is so big, beyond Navy, beyond all military. When you think of bridges and roads and everything all around the world, can you say a couple of words about the Anti-Corrosion Initiative?
The challenge itself was called corrosion detection on ships.
Yeah.
And it was a sandbox. So it was a demonstration. So what we did is that we posted our challenge that if you can do this, we will set up an environment where you come and demonstrate your solution to us. And because you're right, corrosion, worst nightmare for not only ships, by the way, planes, any vehicle, roads, the metal structure inside of concrete, they can rust. So all kinds of places where rust is an issue. In our case, Navy was looking for a solution because ships are on water.
Yep.
So we held that challenge, ended up having about 20 companies proposing their solutions to us. And looking at the solutions that came was like, wow, I mean, never thought that somebody would use this technology to look for rust. So I said, okay, we'll invite them. So we invited 9 of them to come and demonstrate their solution in Halifax, so on the east coast of Canada, where we had built a bunch of panels. So we had built panels that we knew where, because rust is a problem when you don't see it. So under a floor covering, under a pipe cover, so pipes are insulated. Now the pipe is rusting, you don't know it because the insulation is hiding it from. So it's that hidden rust that we're looking for. So we had built some panels, test panels for them to work with. We knew where the rust was. We knew where we had weakened material. And on the prize, we had a Navy ship just on the docks that just come back from Africa. They spent 6 months on water. We have to say that there was some rust on that ship. So innovators came, looked at, first passed the test panels, And some of those solutions were amazing. Really advancing the science. We had our specialists, many specialists from the Navy in Rust, and being there and saying, no, that's not going to work. And then started to see the result and saying, oh, this is amazing. And phone calls were made to other people saying, come see. I mean, there's some great solutions here. And moving from the panels to the ship. And so we had people being able to do that. As they were successful on the panels, we moved them to the ship. And having them work on that ship for small companies to have the opportunity to demonstrate their solution like this, to be able to showcase that their gizmo is able to identify hidden rust on a piece of metal, but then after that to go on the ship and do it on the ship, having military engineers, naval specialists on rust, defense scientists in rust as well, that they can talk with. Amazing for them and amazing for us, because we ended up finding a couple of, let's say 2 or 3 pretty impressive solutions.
Excellent, really excellent. Eric, one thing I noticed, aside from overseeing all these programs, you also are getting out to a lot of these sort of defense technology, defense trends, different symposiums that you're speaking at on panels and so forth, where a lot of the Eric Fourniers from around the world, different countries coming together to discuss science, technology as it pertains to national security and, of course, dual use. What are those meetings like? Because it really seems like there's an ecosystem. Once again, we've been primarily profiling the U.S., but clearly, a lot of countries out there like Canada and others are creating these innovation centers. Talk a little about the ecosystem that you see developing and some of your interactions as you're out there on the sort of the circuit talking about trends.
So Ideas, as I mentioned, was created in 2017, launched in 2018. We looked around the world to our partners, our allies, to see who had done what. So the Australian had launched something in 2016.
Yeah.
We went to visit, had a look at their tool, their program. Did the same thing with the UK, who had started something a bit before. Yep. Visited several of your American colleagues because they had started even before that, and we're learning and looking at how they were doing it, and got privileged information from them because we're all allies. Yep. About what works, what doesn't work. And then we launch our own ideas. Now, since launching ideas, the collaboration with all of those partners has increased, with NATO as well. NATO as an innovation organization. Just last week, several representatives from various NATO countries were in Portugal, because Portugal is developing an access to innovation tool as well, because they realize it seems to be working for others, so why not for them? And we went and talked about our lessons learned, what worked, what didn't work, and don't do that, and the problems that you can be facing as you develop an access to innovation like this, so that they will not, as I said, not redo the mistakes that we've done, and move faster to having a successful program. So we talk about lessons learned a lot of the time. Which domains were like cyber, what we can generate as solutions for cyber attribution, for cyber issues, for cyber attacks, and what domains are social network so we're talking about a bit of domains of work, and also what's missing for us in Canada. We know that acquiring innovation, so after this whole generated something, is hard for us because of procurement rules and everything else. So we're focusing our efforts on that right now. How can we make it easier for us to be able to acquire those innovations following all of our processes? And we realize that we're not the only ones. Several of our colleagues from other countries are facing the same issue. United States as well, and the UK. And so when we meet regularly, we say, so have made any progress there? So what have you tried? And so we are trying to advance each other's program by helping each other with solutions and hopefully get to advanced capabilities for our armed forces, because that's the aim of the thing. We're not doing this for fun, and we're not doing this for the money, or it's really enhancing capabilities for our armed forces.
Excellent. Eric, what's coming up for the rest of the year? Where else are you headed in terms of conferences, speaker panels? Where can we see you, meet you potentially out there? Any other announcements from the Ideas program? Please take the floor.
Yeah. So a lot of the outreach and engagement that Ideas does is featured in Canada. Okay. We do a little bit abroad, but not too much. So across Canada, my team will be all over the country, going from the East Coast, so Newfoundland and Nova Scotia, all the way to the West Coast, British Columbia, going to all kinds of conferences, industry panels, or university organizations, everywhere where we can sit down, talk to innovators and say, hey, here's an opportunity. We exist, we have challenges, we have questions, we have funding, and we need your expertise. You can be working you could be a dentist, for example, and working in materials. And it's like, okay, it's not because you're a dentist. I mean, dentists might not help us, but the knowledge that you have in materials could help us solve something. So we're looking for expertise more than your day-to-day job. I mean, as you do your day-to-day job, you've developed expertise, and that's what we're looking for. And that piece of information is useful for many people, because they say, why would I work for national defense? I'm working in that domain, and it's not very useful for national defense. Well, you might have some expertise that could be useful for us. Have a look at the challenges that we have. So in day in, day out, we have people on the road doing that, because we depend on that outreach. I can have as many good challenges as I want. I could have as much funding as I want. If innovators are not there to listen to me and to apply, I've not done anything. So that outreach and engagement is essential for us to exist. We need to reach out to innovators, to bring as many as possible to listen to us, and to propose proposals like so that we have good proposals to select from. So we do that all the time. Now, in the fall, so right now, the Robotics and AI Challenge we've launched 2 weeks ago is the last one for a little bit. We'll start launching challenges again, I'd say mid-September. Our tool competitive projects, probably gonna have another call then with 6 or 8 challenges, and then we keep going like that. Others gonna follow after that.
Well, based on the public report, you're clearly doing a good job of it, and so I mean it's very impressive. Just the not just the purview and the scope of the programs, but the number of them is outstanding. So I mean you're definitely staying busy, and it's just again I'm very passionate about profiling stories about innovation, but also this specifically in this dual use domain. So it's very exciting. Again, for everybody that is going to be listening to this episode across the different podcast networks or watching on the YouTube channel, you've been spending time with Eric Fournier, Director General for Innovation and Defense Excellence and Security Program, part of Canada's Department of National Defense and Canadian Armed Forces. Eric, it's really been a great time talking with you. I want to thank you for spending the time with us and outlining everything that you have going on in the innovation domain. Obviously, thank you as we are allies. Thank you for doing what you do to keep everyone safe up there. And as we say on this show, thanks for helping to create a better tomorrow through what you do in the innovation domain. Very, very exciting story.
Thank you very much, Ara, for the invitation. So it's been a pleasure.
It was great having you. Be well.